God bless you, sir.
Okay. Okay. Hello everyone. My name is Dapo. I just recently passed my PMP exam, and I'm happy to be here to share how it all came about. First of all, PMP is a reputable certification exam, and it requires a lot of preparation for ones to ace it through. And how did I prepare for it and how did I ace it? I will say that while I was determined on my own, I made sure I was able to link myself. A friend actually referred me to Mr. Ns, to be specific. And and luckily for me, I had started reading, like I started reading PMP before, joining these is one-on-one coaching. And with this, because of my, at least I've read something, I'm able to ask questions during the coaching session on areas that I feel maybe lagging behind and all that. And he's able to answer questions. We're able to, I usually, if you know him, ask him, I ask a lot of questions, just for me to be sure I'm on the right track. And while the session, was going on, the coaching sessions were going on, I was able to finish Rita the first time. And while the section was going on, I started reading Rita again. And so for me, this approach really worked so well because by the time I was reading Rita the second time, I was also using his lecture more or less like a revision just for me to reconfirm what I've read. So I would say this really worked so well for me. And by the time I was done with the training, I was prepared. It took me through both predictive and agile. I felt prepared, but the only way I could be sure is for me to take practice questions. And he provided me with two major practice questions, and the 1001, I think, by Kim something, I've forgotten the name, and the other one happened to be 380. I remembered, I think the last Zoom meeting we had, when Mr. Olatunji shared his own experience, he also made use of these materials. And I remember that he even told us then that he did not complete the 1001 because he feels they were a bit wordy and technical and all that. But I just told myself, but he told me that it paid off, doing that 1000 questions, and as well as the 380, which he believes they seems to be, close to the real exam. So I just took it upon myself, to take the whole 1000 questions. I won't like, they seems worthy, but um, the 1000 question really helped because the other one that looked like it, there were questions that were a bit wordy, but because I've answered questions that were like maybe 8 lines, some 8 lines, up to 8 lines, so having few questions in real exam that happen to be up to 4 or 5 lines, few of some of them, so they were not even difficult for me that way, but everything still boils down to the preparation. So I did 800 out of the 1000 practice questions, and I was able to score at least above 70 in all of them. While the other one, at least I was able to score maybe close to 80 in those ones. And I watched few YouTube videos as well just for me to be sure. But sincerely, I felt that okay, based on the lecture I had taken, I was kind of confident. I just don't know why, but this would have been possible if if I didn't make sure that I'm able to read Rita twice at least, then practice those questions so well. And at some point, my initial plan was to take this exam maybe in March. But when I realized that, okay, I've covered Rita twice, I'm able to ask Mr. Ernest the right questions. What am I supposed to do? Putting in the hours, because sincerely speaking, two major things that work for me, you have to be determined that you're going to pass this exam, and that will influence your mindset. And once you are able to be at that mode, you will want to put in your best. You want to put any stone unturned, and this really worked for me. Now, I had initially I had intention of taking the exam at home, but due to one reason, I tried using my system and it wasn't really accepting it. It wasn't qualifying, allowing my system to take the exam. So I decided to you know go to the center. I went to the center, and they have heard one way or the other. I think Mr. Olatunji too also said it, or maybe some other people too have mentioned it before, that the first 60 questions, seems to be quite tough, while the second and third, if you've prepared so well, you should be able to, you should be able to answer them well. So I already went with the plan to say, okay, I know that the number of minutes I'm supposed to use. So I had planned that, okay, for first section, I will use 75 minutes, but 75 minutes, second one, 75 minutes, then the last one, I think 80 minutes or so. So that was my plan. But, I still went through all the notes the night before. I went through the notes, some of the things that my coach mentioned, some things that he mentioned, I tried to allow a ring in my head. Some of the things that you even see, like, okay, this thing, you must not forget it. This thing, they might want to use this thing to confuse you, you know, difference between engagement and communication, all those different tips and all that. And I revised my notes, went to the exam. Lo and behold, I would say the exam, the first question that I thought, was going to be very difficult, I by maybe 50, maybe at 60, 61 minutes, I was done with it. And I won't lie, the only thing that made this work was I think for me, was the approach. Having, reading Rita, because he emphasized to me then that you have to cover Rita cover to cover twice. And I will tell you that this really worked for me, because the other time when I took the exam, then I did not read. In fact, I could not even finish Rita the first time. I just, I thought maybe the lecture notes, would just, be enough. But sincerely, for one to pass, you have to read that book twice. For you to, I think the first time you're reading it, you are having good idea, but the second time you're reading it, you are having in-depth understanding that you can actually maybe take to even apply some of those things you've learned, in the exam and in real life. So, and areas that I wasn't sure, I was able to ask the right question. During the exam, the first question came, the first set of question came, I was surprised, like, but some of my friends that actually took the exam that day, I won't say maybe because they didn't really prepare so well, they found the first set of questions, difficult, and I went into the second one, it was, everything I was able to apply, because the thing is that it wasn't like they were not technical. I could see how tricky they were, but because there's already a mindset, I already knew, okay, this is, if you see this kind of question, this is how you're going to answer it. I could refer to the 1,000 past questions that I took, for areas that I felt that maybe those questions that I got wrong, I went through all of them. Those questions that I got wrong, I understand why, those questions, why I got them wrong, went back to read some of those areas as well. Second section, I took it. Third one, okay, so after the first section, I requested for my break, my 10-minute break. Then I went for the second one too. I went on my 10-minute break. So the third one, by the time I took the exam, all my thought was like, if the first one, wasn't that bad, the second wasn't that bad, I was expecting that the third one would be tough. But the third one, I was able to, by maybe like 30 minutes to go, I was done with the third one. And don't forget that whenever I finish, I make sure I review my question, and I'm able to review my questions. Those ones that I flagged, I was able to review them, you know. And other ones that I didn't flag, I didn't even bother to review them, because I didn't want to waste much of the time. So, but for the last one, I flagged my questions, went through them. 30 minutes to go, I was done. Then I think I forgot to tell Mr. NSD. Then I felt pressed, and you can only go to break twice. I just told them, but because I was, the way the exam had went, I was confident that, okay, at least I've prepared so well, and I'm, so I told them I would like to go on break. I would like to go and ease myself. And they were like, they were just like, okay, let them confirm whether I can go. And so my time was actually running. I went to I went to ease myself, 25 minutes to go, came back, and I submitted. I just went through. I At that period, I knew that okay, everything went well already. I submitted and I just saw congratulations. It was easy for me, once I saw congratulations, because based on what is being shared with us here, that okay, once you see congratulations, you've passed. I was so happy, with it. And at the end of the day, they gave me one paper for me to see how I've performed. I was able to, I had above target on all the areas, on all the sections, and then I got my certificate. Sincerely, the journey, if they should tell me that okay, I'm going to be acing PMP at some point, because there was even a time my wife suggested that why don't I go and take the exam? I was just like no, because it showed me pepper then, but I realized two major things that I can take away from my experience. Number one, sincerely, you have to be determined that you're going to pass. And determination comes with action, not just gainsaying. You have to put action to it. You understand? And then whatever you're being told, I won't lie, the one-on-one coaching really helped me a lot, because because that question, PMP question, you have to be sure of the answer, right? And for me to be sure, so areas that I'm not clear, I decided to shout out to Mr. Enes that this area, what is different between, there was a time, if Mr. Enes can remember, there was a time where I was trying to understand about backlog refinement, which area they're supposed to, I asked him those questions for me to be sure of what I was going to be picking. And the questions were situational based, a lot were agile. So, and while a lot were agile, these four sections that I said I didn't feel that they were difficult. Sincerely, you may be able to eliminate two answers. The last two answers you have to be able to decide. But this is where I'm able to, based on all the questions I've asked and all that, I'm able to like, oh, these two answers look the same, but I think based on the mindset that have been shared with me, I think this one will be it. And I'm able to eliminate the other ones. And here I am, able to ace the exam. And sincerely, I would like to thank Mr. Ernest. You know, Fine, I understand that we paid, but uh, passing PMP won't have been possible, without the right coaching. Sincerely, you might know it, but okay, when he's emphasizing that stick to a particular material, stick to XYZ material, it's a lot. And if he's telling you do the whole 1,000 question, the 380 question, if that was what I had done, it will have helped me to have that understanding. But the ability to be the resilience, for me to be resilient, I would have found it difficult, because sitting down, for how long, or maybe if I'm not used to reading maybe a wordy question, it will have been difficult for me, more difficult for me. So I would like to summarize, what I in the work, and listen to whatever you are told to do. You make sure you review your notes, and you have to burn the hours. As in, I won't lie, 2 weeks to the exam, back to back. I was doing back to back reading, non-stop. Come back from work, back to back, and I wish everyone, if anyone has failed it before, I would like to encourage you to, don't be discouraged. It's possible to pass PMP once you're able to put in the work, once you're able to follow all the instructions, and once you're able to ask questions in areas that you are not clear. You have to ask questions. And if Mr. Ines is saying read Twitter 2 times, if it's possible, you can read it 3 times. Sincerely, is because there's a way. The more you read it, the more you gain more understanding about it. And I think that is all I have. I don't know if maybe I'm supposed to share any other thing, Mr. Ernest.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dapo. Thank you so much. We appreciate the things you shared with us. does any of us have any questions for him? I know quite a number of us have questions. So does any of us have questions for him? I do have questions as well. So, but does anyone have any questions? Let's do that.
Let me share, sir, that really I was the one, I asked a lot of questions from Mr. Olatunji when he passed. Then I had a series of questions.
Yes.
Yeah, because some of those what he said, really also helped me.
Yeah. So if you have questions, please, this is a good time to ask. Some of us are muted. If you have questions, please ask your questions. You can put it in the chat room if you are shy to talk. But if you're not, you can actually go ahead and ask your question. You can unmute yourself and then ask your question.
I was too sure that I was going to pass, but since I didn't put in the right effort, I didn't pass it then. And so I would say that, I just summoned courage, like, okay, I think I can do this. And I will make sure I follow all the instructions to the letter. So I will say they shouldn't be discouraged. And I will say that it's important to adhere to the materials sincerely. And I would say they should not make the mistake of not practicing enough. Yeah. So I will say those three things. Not practicing enough will not help you. If you don't practice enough, you'll not be able to know the areas that you have gaps. So not practicing enough or being discouraged, will not actually. Even if you try to practice and you ended up getting maybe the score that you never wanted, you should just not be discouraged and be happy for the ones you've gotten correctly. Know that okay, you are making progress. Then while you look at those ones that you are yet to, that you didn't pass, and look at the answers, why they were wrong, and go to refer to the books that you've been told to read for areas that you feel you can improve. Because sincerely, those are the things I make sure. I already told myself that I will not I will make sure that I read everything I'm supposed to read. I won't relent to say, oh, I've read Rita one first time. I think I'm okay. Because the second reading, will be the eye opener where you don't need to cram again. The second reading will help you assimilate well, will help you digest what you've read. How much more when you now have the lecture? Because the thing is that you might even be thinking you understand something. You need the coaching or the lecturing for you to validate what you've actually read. Am I correct? Is this that? So, and another thing is that don't fail to ask questions. If you are not sure, shout out, ask question. Don't make mistake of not asking question. So those are the things.
Okay, thank you very much. Did you notice any calculations in the exam, sir? Did you notice any calculational questions?
Well, there were just there was no calculation. The only question that is not even calculation is the end value management section, where you are supposed to interpret the situation, maybe determine whether the business, the project is on budget or is not on budget and all that. So I think that's the only calculation related, but it's not really calculation because you are just interpreting, what you are being given.
Okay, Mr. Adekunle has a question. Go ahead, sir. Mr. Adekunle, go ahead.
Yeah, yes, please.
Like I said, the questions were at least maybe roughly, I would say 80 to 90% agile and 10% predictive. So, and even the predictive is so far you know your 49 processes, I don't think you have any issue with it, but ITTOs and all that, there was nothing like ITTO. So there's nothing really needed for you to cram.
Okay, thank you very much.
that's for me though. I don't know what other people want, but for me, I think the classes or the coaching sessions were, they were, very comprehensive enough. I remembered when we did Kanban, we spent over 2 hours on Kanban, and during, the private coaching, I know we went through everything on the practice guide. So for me, I didn't read the practice guide though, but
Yes, sir.
because I
Yes,
just
sir.
feel
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
since
Yes, sir.
okay, yeah. So what I'm saying is that for me, I believe the class or the one-on-one coaching session covered every area of the practice guide. And I think that is where another aspect of the coach. I didn't read Pinbook either. In fact, fine, my coach, Mr. Ines, shared the Pinbook guide with me, but I did not read it. I didn't even open it. Same with the practice guide, because based on the way his lectures has been, organized, it shows that already that is all what I needed to do, all what I needed to understand, and I was fine with it that way. And this happened to be the result at the end of the day. So I would say that's the aspect of the coaching, because the coach is supposed to help you interpret the guide, is supposed to help you interpret the agile practice guide and the pinball guide. Because I think the pinball guide is over 600, is it 600 or something? Reading down with other books will be something else.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Lada.
Do, or what are you going to do first, or what are you going to do in a such as in a situation. So they might ask you a question that maybe two team members, they are, and maybe they are not happy with one another, they started fighting. What are you going to do? What are you going to do first, or what are you going to do? If there is fight or understanding, and they're asking what are you going to do first, you don't expect to take action. You have to first of all understand the root cause of the problem, collaborate with the team to resolve that problem. So it's not that they will be asking you, and don't forget, I mentioned that the questions were more of agile. So you must not joke with the agile. That doesn't mean that you should not read, you shouldn't pay attention to the predictive section, but the questions were almost, I would say, 80 to 90% agile. So then as for the process, it wasn't like, for me, let me tell you what I did. And I think it was from the first day when I had the lecture, that the process, I took my time to look at the process chart itself, look at where they are placed. I tried to read everything, understand it. And I used to tell Mr. Ines then that in a week, I must write my process in a paper every week. I just write it down. And I usually time myself. Initially I was doing 10 minutes. Other times I started doing 6 minutes for me to write the whole 49 process. But sincerely, in the exam, I didn't really need those 49 processes. Didn't come out like, okay, what is the process of XYZ? No, they were all situational based. But the main thing is for you to understand what happened in those processes. That will give you in-depth knowledge, of how, if a question should come, towards that direction. But like I said, the majority of the questions were even agile. I
Okay,
hope
thank you.
question. Yes, sir. In your timing, the time, whenever you are taking your practice test, because the 1,000 questions, I made sure I took them, and I timed myself like the real exams, you know. And the timing really helped me to manage my time very well. Initially, when I first started, I wasn't really able to manage my time so well. Maybe I'm able to rush. But once I started monitoring my time so well, it really helped me. And I don't know, maybe the time on my phone is different. Their own time was now able to be enough for me, because I was already used to it. So if you are taking any of the practice tests, even if it's 60 minutes and the 60 questions one, or any one, just make sure you time yourself. make sure you time yourself, because it's going to, you have to put yourself, you have to simulate like you are actually in the real exam, avoid any distraction, take the exam. Because I took some of those exams on the 1,000 question, I will do 60, take break, do 60, take another break. And that break, I even try not to even go and maybe say I want to open my book, or do any, I did it as if, okay, it's the real exam, and they are watching me. And that was what kind of really helped me in the real exam. So I was already used to the timing already. So I will encourage those that will be using the practice question to do same.